The Sacred Sisters of Ishtar sex work in ancient Mesopotamia. This chapter delves into the intriguing and often misunderstood world of sex work in one of the earliest civilizations known to humanity. The oldest profession, well, it's certainly up there. In ancient Mesopotamia, sex work was not just a means of survival or a social taboo. It was a respected and integral part of their culture. Evidence suggests that in ancient Mesopotamia, sex work wasn't just tolerated, it was intertwined with religion. This connection elevated the status of those involved, particularly the priestesses of the goddess Ishtar. We're talking 3000 BC here, in the cradle of civilization. Mesopotamia, often referred to as the land between rivers, was a hub of innovation, culture, and religious practices. The goddess Ishtar, a powerful figure associated with love, fertility, and war, played a key role. She was revered and worshipped, and her priestesses were seen as her earthly representatives. Temples dedicated to Ishtar housed priestesses who also engaged in sexual acts as a form of worship. These acts were not seen as mere transactions, but as sacred rituals that honored the goddess and sought her blessings. It wasn't about personal gain or simple pleasure. It was a ritual act, believed to bring blessings from the goddess. Imagine that. The priestesses' roles were deeply spiritual, and their actions were considered vital for the well-being of the community. These women, often referred to as the Sacred Sisters of Ishtar, held a special place in society. They were respected and honored for their roles, which were seen as essential to maintaining the favor of the gods. They weren't ostracized or looked down upon. Instead, they were integral to the religious and social fabric of Mesopotamian life. They weren't ostracized or looked down upon. Their role was seen as sacred, an important part of religious and social life. The community recognized the value and significance of their contributions. Their role was seen as sacred, an important part of religious and social life. The priestesses were believed to act as intermediaries between the divine and the mortal world, ensuring harmony and prosperity. Of course, alongside the temple priestesses, other forms of sex work existed. These were more secular and did not carry the same religious significance, but they were still a recognized part of society. But the connection to the divine adds a fascinating layer to our understanding of sex work in the ancient world. It challenges our modern perceptions and invites us to see these practices through a different lens. It's a far cry from the often stigmatized view we encounter later in history. In ancient Mesopotamia, sex work, especially within the context of religious practices, was a respected and vital part of their culture. This perspective offers a unique glimpse into how ancient societies understood and integrated sexuality and spirituality. The Hetairai companionship and influence in ancient Greece. Fast forward a few millennia and we find ourselves in ancient Greece, a society known for its philosophers, poets, and yes, its rather liberal attitude towards sex. Here, a distinct class of women known as Hetairai flourished. These weren't your average prostitutes, no sir. Hetairai were a unique blend of beauty, intellect, and sophistication. Hetairai were educated, sophisticated companions. They were trained in the arts of conversation, music, and dance. They could converse on philosophy, politics, and the arts. Their education allowed them to engage with the most learned men of their time. Think of them as the geishas of ancient Greece. Just like geishas, Hetairai were more than mere entertainers. They were cultural icons. Wealthy and influential men sought their company for intellectual stimulation as much as physical pleasure. The Hetairai were often present at symposia where they would engage in deep discussions and debates. Aspasia, the partner of the Athenian statesman Pericles, is a prime example of a Hetaira who wielded considerable influence. She was not just a companion, but a confidant and advisor. She was renowned for her intelligence and wit, attracting poets, philosophers, and even Socrates himself to her salon. Her home became a hub of intellectual activity. The existence of Hetairai highlights the complex social dynamics of ancient Greece. They occupied a unique space in society, one that allowed them to transcend the typical limitations placed on women of their time. While respectable Athenian women were largely confined to the home, Hetairai enjoyed a degree of freedom and influence that was quite remarkable for the time. They could move freely in public spaces, participate in social and intellectual gatherings, and even influence political decisions. Their presence in the marketplace and at social events was a testament to their unique status. They were both admired and envied, respected and sometimes scorned. Some hetairai even took on the role of mentors, passing on their knowledge and skills to younger women. They were not just companions, but educators and cultural ambassadors. Their influence extended to the arts as well. Hetairai were often patrons of the theatre and other cultural events, supporting artists and performers. The legacy of the hetairai is a fascinating chapter in the history of ancient Greece. They were women who defied the norms of their time, carving out a space for themselves in a male-dominated society. Today, scholars continue to study their lives and contributions, uncovering new insights into the social and cultural fabric of ancient Greece. The hetairai remain a symbol of the power of intellect and charm, a reminder of the complex roles women have played throughout history. Roman regulation, the business of pleasure in the Roman Empire. Imagine walking through the bustling streets of ancient Rome, where the air is filled with the sounds of merchants calling out their wares and the scent of exotic spices. Amidst this vibrant marketplace, another kind of business thrived, one that catered to the pleasures of the flesh. Now, the Romans, they were a practical lot. They saw prostitution not as a moral dilemma, but as a fact of life, a business to be regulated like any other. In their eyes, it was just another trade, no different from selling grain or pottery. The pragmatism of the Romans extended to all aspects of life, and the business of pleasure was no exception. And regulate they did with characteristic Roman efficiency. The Roman authorities took a hands-on approach, ensuring that the industry was well organized and under their control. This regulation was not just about maintaining order, but also about maximizing revenue for the state. Prostitution was legal, taxed, and surprisingly organized. The state imposed taxes on brothels and individual prostitutes, turning what many might consider a vice into a significant source of income. This taxation system was meticulously documented, with records kept to ensure compliance. Brothels ranged from humble establishments to luxurious lupaneria, some even with price lists etched in stone. These brothels were strategically located throughout the city, catering to different classes of society. The more luxurious ones offered not just physical pleasure, but also an opulent environment, complete with intricate stone carvings and lavish interiors. Prostitutes themselves, both male and female, were required to register with the authorities. This registration process involved providing personal details and obtaining a license to operate. It was a way to keep track of those involved in the trade and to ensure that they adhered to the regulations set forth by the state. This pragmatic approach, however, didn't mean everyone approved. There were those who viewed the regulation of prostitution as a sign of moral decay. Public debates and speeches often highlighted the tension between practicality and morality. Moralists like the poet Juvenal railed against the perceived decadence of Roman society. In his satirical works, Juvenal criticized the moral decline he believed was brought about by such practices. Yet despite the vocal opposition, the system endured, a testament to the Roman ability to balance practicality with societal norms. The Roman example provides a stark contrast to the often clandestine nature of prostitution in other cultures. While in many societies prostitution was hidden away, in Rome it was out in the open, a visible part of daily life. This openness was a reflection of the Roman approach to governance and social issues. It was a visible part of the urban landscape, subject to rules and regulations just like any other trade. The signs of brothels were as common as those of bakeries or blacksmiths, integrated into the fabric of the city. This integration highlights the unique way in which the Romans managed to incorporate even the most controversial aspects of life into their structured society. Section 4. Medieval morality, the church, prostitution and double standards. With the rise of Christianity, the landscape of prostitution shifted dramatically. The church, with its emphasis on chastity and monogamy, condemned the practice as a sin. Gone were the days of temple priestesses and state-sanctioned brothels. But here's the rub: while officially condemned, prostitution didn't simply vanish, it was driven underground, becoming less visible but no less prevalent. Medieval cities, teeming with merchants, travelers and soldiers, provided ample clientele. The church's stance created a double standard. Prostitution was condemned, yet it was tolerated as a necessary evil, a way to protect chaste women from the lusts of men. This contradictory attitude would cast a long shadow on the way sex work was perceived for centuries to come. Section 5. Renaissance refinement, courtesans and cultural influence. The Renaissance, with its rediscovery of classical learning and emphasis on humanism, brought about a fascinating shift in attitudes towards prostitution. In Italy, a new breed of courtesan emerged, one that echoed the hetairai of ancient Greece. These were no ordinary prostitutes. They were women of beauty, intelligence and refinement. They were mistresses to princes and patrons of the arts. Think Veronica Franco of Venice, a published poet, and Lucrezia Borgia, daughter of a pope who navigated the treacherous world of Renaissance politics. Courtesans wielded considerable influence. They inspired artists, poets, and musicians. They were muses, confidants, and even political players in their own right. Their lives, often shrouded in scandal and intrigue, provide a glimpse into the complex social fabric of the Renaissance. Section 6. Gold Rush. Madam's power and profit on the American frontier. The American West, wild and untamed, saw prostitution boom during the gold rush. Thousands of men, fueled by dreams of striking it rich, flocked to California, creating a huge demand for companionship and, shall we say, entertainment. Enterprising women, often referred to as madams, seized the opportunity. They established brothels, some modest, others lavishly furnished, catering to miners, businessmen, and even the occasional lawman. These madams were savvy businesswomen, accumulating wealth and influence in a male-dominated world. Names like Belle Cora, Lola Montez, and Josephine Airy became legendary. They challenged societal norms, amassed fortunes, and left their mark on the history of the American West. Their stories are a testament to the resilience and entrepreneurial spirit of women who carved out their own destinies in a time of extraordinary change.